Chapter 11 is really kind of interesting. Last time we were talking about how you focus on your client's strengths. This is very social working. This is the way they do it in social work. They focus on their client's strengths. So we're going to be talking about, or I'm going to show you some of the things that practitioners say when they're focusing on people's strengths. What do you do well? What do you like about yourself? What does your family do that is fun? What are some good things about this organization? Tell me about your friends who have helped you in the past. What have you done that you are proud of? And of course, then we talked about empowerment. Empowerment is achieved when clients know that they have knowledge, skills, competencies, resources to make decisions, solve problems, and achieve goals. And I bragged about being really good at drawing blood about this point. As people use their strengths and resources to face and deal with problems and challenges, they gain confidence. So the more success an individual has, the more confident they're going to be. They have a feeling that they can actually do something or get something accomplished. Tell me about something you completed that seemed difficult. What skills have helped you solve previous challenges? How have you resolved previous challenges? And of course, after reflecting the client's strengths, the practitioner can invite the client to catalog other instances when they have actively participated in solving problems. This will enhance their confidence and sense of empowerment, of course, going over things that are very positive in your life. This isn't a bad idea for us either, as counselors. We may be facing challenges. Sometimes it feels like every client that comes in is a failure. You need to think about your accomplishments as well. You need to catalog the things that you've done well. The fact that you there's a book by a guy that in Botswana, and there's a lady that in the book that is she has problems. Okay, she has problems, and anytime she is feeling like she's a failure, she reminds herself that she got a 97 on the final exam at her college, and that makes her feel adequate, makes her feel competent. Despite the fact that she has just had a failure, it always reminds her that she has had successes in the past. Not a bad idea for all of us. Tell me about something you completed that seemed difficult. Of the things you have already done to resolve this problem, tell me about what has worked well, even for a brief period of time. I'm not exactly sure why I have that guy strangling the lady to death. That's one of the Hemsworths. I can't tell them apart. They look alike. Blonde-headed Australian. What are some of the things that you learned from working with past challenges? What skills helped you solve past challenges? How have you resolved previous challenges? Respect can be demonstrated by expressing understanding and validating the client's story, by showing interest in the client's thoughts and feelings, wants, needs, and goals, by creating and maintaining a collaborative environment, by asking about strengths, resources, potential, and capacities, by identifying strengths. We always need to respect our clients, no matter what their problem is, no matter what they've done. This is not always the easiest thing in the world. If you get somebody coming in who smells bad, who hasn't bathed in months rather than days, we got a problem. I mean, you may have a problem with them, and I understand that. But you should always respect everybody. This is the problem that they had in the South, the social workers in the South. if you think about it. They had a very difficult time respecting their African American clients, and because of that, they failed over and over and over and over again. They didn't understand them, they didn't like them, and they didn't treat them very well. So they had continual failures. We saw the same thing up in Montana with, oh, I told you about this. They moved all the TANF and welfare offices. They moved them all to the county seat. And I guess that's logical to some extent, but most of the people that needed their services were not in that area. Most of them were either on the reservation or just off the reservation. And this was a really serious problem. Then they decided to move the office to the reservation. And when they did, the women who worked in those offices didn't want to drive all the way down to the reservation, and they didn't treat people very nice. And for that reason, it was a catastrophic failure, a continual failure. Until they hired a lady who was native, and as soon as they did, and she moved into the office, it was easier for them to understand who their clients were, because this individual was a very affable woman, and it changed everything. It changed everything completely. So one of the things that you have to think about is that you always need to respect your clients, no matter who they are, no matter what their circumstance. So and it's not the easiest thing in the world. I can talk about it. I've spent a whole lifetime wandering around the world and wandering around the United States and dealing with a lot of different people. And I can tell you that the best way to get along with people is to actually like them or to respect them. And if you don't respect them, then it's really tough to do your job. So it's just one of those things to think about. If you don't like Hopi, if you don't like Apache, if you don't like people who aren't from your tribe, then this may not be the right job for you, okay? Because you're going to be dealing with lots and lots of different people. If you don't like African Americans, then this is probably not the job you should have. You need to like everybody. You don't have to love everybody. I do, but you don't have to. I mean, it's taken me a lifetime to figure that one out. And of course, one of the reasons that I don't have any problems with people is because when I was in the service, that's how we stayed alive, is by embracing the people around us. You don't do that, and that guy's not going to. If you get into a serious situation, they're not going to try to protect you, try to save your life. They won't do anything to save your life. Because they don't have to. But then again, none of us are going in. This isn't combat we're talking about. Demonstrating respect with all the trained professionals in this group, I am confident that we can find a way to resolve this. You've tried to solve this problem. This is something that we see all the time in an organization. Especially here, especially in an academic setting. You've tried this and this and this and this and none of it's worked. Tell me what those things are, so we don't try the same thing over again. Or if we do, we try it in a different fashion. You've tried to solve this problem. Will you tell me all the other things you have considered but haven't used yet? You seem quite angry about how your boss has been behaving. It must be a tough place to work. How do you think I might help you? Wow, she is pissed, isn't she? When you resolve this problem, what are some things that will be different in your family? You have told me about the many things you have worked on this challenge. How else in the agency might be, who else in the agency might be willing to work with us to resolve this problem? Yeah, there you go. A bunch of second graders. Let's find somebody in the second grade. to work. As I understand it, you have done a lot of thinking about the problems this organization is facing. You have talked to a number of people about their understanding of the problem and have decided to commit time and energy to resolving this problem. You have taken some important steps in solving the problem, demonstrating respect. And that is the end of that chapter. Okay. Oh, something I need to tell you. I recounted the number of classes we're going to have. We don't have to start, this is the 8th week. We don't have to start next week. We can start the following week. So we've got 2 weeks before we'll start counseling. You need to get your histories in so that I can put them up online. I'll put all that stuff together. If I don't have your history, then they can't read your history. And of course they won't know who you are, and they won't know what your new name is. So your persona. So you need to get those into me as soon as possible, definitely by the 10th week. And this is the 8th week. This is midterm week. Does anybody notice that? You guys taking midterms? I don't like midterms myself, so that's why I do it the way I do it. The only way I can give you a grade is if you've done something. So if you haven't done anything, or whatever you do, that's the grade I'll give you. I'm not assuming that everybody should be caught up, because I don't. That's not the way I put my class together. So if you're behind by 3 or 4 weeks, don't worry about it. I'll just grade whatever you've done up to this point. So there's going to be a lot of A's in this class. That doesn't mean you're going to end up with an A. It's going to make me look stupid. That's okay. I look stupid every semester. I look pretty damn dumb. So I will probably give out a lot of A's, because I will grade whatever you have finished. So if you only have 3 quizzes done, that's what I'll look at. And if you've only done 1 discussion, that's what I'll look at. I'll try to get everything graded by Monday. I have to turn in the grades by Monday. But don't feel like you want to do like 10 quizzes on Sunday, because the 10 quizzes will show up, but 10 discussions, I probably won't grade them. I won't have a chance to grade them, okay? At the end of the year, yeah, I'll do it. Oh, geez, I'm just constantly grading and going back over everything, and then somebody will email me. Denise will email me and say, oh, I just finished 246 discussions. Could you grade them? And I've got to turn it in 15 minutes. Thanks, Denise. She's never done that. I'm just using her as an example. Okay, that's chapter 10. Let's go on to chapter 11. I'll see if I can get through all this stuff before we start counseling. Otherwise, we'll have to interrupt our counseling. Okay, chapter 11 is assessing readiness and motivation. Really kind of an interesting chapter, because this is probably the one thing that you need to understand when you're talking to a client. You never know where they are and whether they're ready to proceed, to move forward. You just never know. What's that? Oh. Thank you. Does anybody need this? Is everybody else signed up? Okay. You got to remember that I started in this game in 1976. In 1976, I was 27 years old. So I started in this in 1976. A lot of the research that we talk about is newer than that, much newer than that. This is 1999. Prochaska came up with this list of factors in 1999, and what he was looking at 3 types of programs. One was a sobriety program, people that drink. One was a smoking cessation program, and the other had to do with weight reduction. Prochaska looked at these different programs, and what he determined was there are 5 factors, there are 5 stages that an individual can be in. Those 5 stages include pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance stage. These are the 5 stages that somebody can be in. So if you know anything about the AA programs, about 12-step programs, usually they're looking at these 5 stages, despite the fact that the AA program is almost is 80 years old, 85 years old. There's a television show, which is really kind of interesting. I didn't really enjoy it because they yell at each other a lot, but there's a program called Mom, and it's about 2 people that were alcoholics. It's really kind of interesting because one of them has another problem. She has a gambling addiction, and so it's the whole show is about them trying to get straight. The one individual's been straight for an extended length of time, I guess 17 years or something like that. But they were really serious alcoholics and drug users. One of the interesting things, evidently the person that writes the show suffers from addiction because they have written the show the way that I have noticed that people react to these things. If you've ever been around an alcoholic, no matter how long they've been sober, what they want to talk about is all the fun they had when they were drunk. So even if they've been sober for 20 or 30 years, they still want to talk about, that time in Albuquerque when they got so snockered they couldn't remember. They went into the wrong room and they kept going into the women's bathroom. Really strange things. So why in the world are they talking about this? Because that is, I don't know, that's part of their mindset, I guess. So dealing with these types of programs, smoking cessation, weight reduction programs, and sobriety programs, they've come up with these 5 stages. The first stage is pre-contemplation, the pre-contemplation stage. In the pre-contemplation stage, the individual denies or lacks understanding of that they have a problem, that this is a problem behavior. Since the individual does not recognize their problem, they do not see the need for change. They may blame their problem on others, especially alcoholics. They're really good at blaming somebody else. Oh, I wouldn't drink it, except my wife just keeps giving me a hard time. Okay, so it must be her fault. Obviously, it's her fault. They may only agree to see a practitioner because someone has suggested or required it. Usually, if we're talking about a sobriety program, we're talking about the courts telling them that they have to go to treatment. I had a friend that went to treatment 45 times. 45 times, every time he got in trouble. He was the police chief on a reservation. And the reason they kept sending him to treatment is because he was a really good police chief. So they didn't want to lose him. So every time he dropped off the wagon, they would send him to treatment again. And none of it ever worked. I've told you this story. The only reason he got clean and sober was because he went up on the mountain and had I don't know. You can call it a vision quest if you want. Anyway, he had an epiphany up on the mountain. He was fasting up there. Fasted for 5 days. And by the time he came down, he was pretty delusional. But it changed his life. That's what changed. It wasn't one of these programs. Anyway, the pre-contemplation stage, they deny that there's a problem. They blame other people for their problem, and sometimes they have to be sent. They have to be forced to go. What's the probability if you're forced to go that it's going to work? Well, just like with my friend Sonny, it was almost impossible. Weight Watchers, of course, a doctor can send you to Weight Watchers, and of course, if you don't want to stop, if you don't want to not eat that, drink that soda and eat those Little Debbies, you're not going to stop. until you decide that it's time to stop. So pre-contemplation stage is a denial stage. Example would be a person who abuses substances but despite many arrests for driving under the influence does not consider themselves to have a problem, needs to be addressed. Okay, so we got a person that's smoking dope. We have a gang that lives in a community with high levels of violence who believe that they can continue perpetrating violence and not be personally affected. A husband who comes along to counseling because his wife thinks that they have problems but doesn't see any problems himself. Whoops. A wife who wants to end her marriage and comes to counseling to ease her guilt. Maybe she is going to counseling in order to tell herself, I did everything I could to save the marriage. I even went to counseling. But she's already decided she's going to take off. A person who has had a serious health crisis and has been told to change their eating habits but states, I have always eaten this way and I am not going to change now. I have a really good friend that just died last year. I've been complaining about it for, I don't know, for a long time. Anyway, so I had a heart attack in 2010. And of course I survived my heart attack. I have no damage to my heart, you know. It irritates doctors, it irritates everybody I talk to who has had a heart attack and has part of their heart is dead. My friend, of course, I told him at the time, look, I live a healthy lifestyle, I exercise a lot, and I survived my heart attack. If you ever have a heart attack, you're going to die. And of course, he's a potato chip eater, and a beer drinker, and a smoker, and he just couldn't give up his cigarettes. He gave up his potato chips. I know, didn't give up his beer. But he did give up his potato chips. Well, he had the same heart attack I did, and he died. What's my point? My point is that some people don't want to change. And I told him 5 years ago, I told him 10 years ago that if he doesn't stop doing that, he's going to die. And he said, oh, okay. And so one day he sent me a picture of him with a fish. He caught this huge, huge fish. He lives in, where did he live? Oh, West Virginia. And he went out to the Chesapeake Bay and caught a big fish. Anyway, so he's standing there, he's got this cigarette dangling out of his mouth, you know, and he's holding up his fish. And I could see that, oh, geez, you know, he looked like he was 1,000,000 years old. His face was all pasty. I knew he was going to die. I just knew it. I could tell just by looking at him. He looked worse than the fish did, and the fish was already dead. Anyway. Okay, so sometimes people are in denial. You can't make them stop eating. Practitioners should focus on raising clients' awareness of the urgency of issues and pain or fear involved. We got. Okay. Are you okay? Arlene, are you okay? Do you need another chair? Okay. We got one right here. Do you need this one? Okay. Practitioners should focus on raising clients' awareness of the urgency of the issues and pain or fear involved. Sometimes you just need to scare them, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. You just need to tell them that this is a problem, like I tried to tell my friend. The reason he didn't give up smoking is because his girlfriend and then his wife, it was the same person, was a smoker, and that was how they interacted, was by going outside and smoking. So while that was like the only time, well, about the only time they ever interacted. Counselor, don't look at this picture if you, okay. Counselor, if you continue drinking, what do you think your life will be like in 5 years? And of course, this is an individual who has just vomited, which is always cute. And she's laying there. And here's another guy. Wow, look at this. This guy's in equally as bad a shape. I have worked with people who have changed their eating habits and become healthier. This is Twinkies, Doritos, Chex Mix, combos, York peppermint patties. Wow, what a cool guy. A person in the pre-contemplation stage isn't interested in setting goals. The target must be to get the client to think about changing their lives and whether it will improve their lives. The reality is that you can't change anybody. The only thing you can do is get somebody to change their own life. So if they're in the pre-contemplation stage, you need to convince them that they actually need to do something. They need to do something to change their lives, otherwise they're going to die. It's the way it works. And I hate to talk about death, but the reality is that if you do not change, you're going to die. I know I'm a cold-hearted person. I've been told that over and over and over again. Even my mother told me I was a cold-hearted person, and she's probably the coldest-hearted person I've ever met. She was a nurse, and she worked in the emergency room. She worked in ICU, so she had to take care of a lot of people. We got one right there, and one right there. We have two. Is it going to rain again? Because I brought my umbrella today, and everybody's told me that I didn't need it. I have my raincoat. Okay. So it's going to rain. I like that idea. Okay. All right. So the pre-contemplation stage, you haven't convinced them yet. You need to convince them that they need to do something. If you can convince them that they need to do something, then they will go into the contemplation stage. That's the second stage. It's the stage of readiness for change is contemplation. So they have to start thinking about it. Rats, I'm going to kill myself if I don't change my ways. That's what they need to tell themselves. The individual in this stage weighs the pros and cons in making a change, but they are not quite ready to move ahead with making a change. Not quite yet, but they are thinking about it. At least they are thinking about it. Usually this takes place if we're dealing with an alcoholic. This takes place when they do something stupid. They wreck their car. Somebody leaves them. They forget to pick up their kid. All of these things are create epiphanies for these select individuals. And so at that point they think, well, maybe I need to stop. Maybe I need to change my behavior. Practitioners can discuss the advantages and disadvantages of changing. It is helpful to identify barriers or challenges to making changes. The practitioner can propose small steps for considering a change. The smaller the step, usually the better. But then again, you may have an individual that wants to leap forward. Leaping forward is not a good idea. You have to take each step at a time. Each day is the next step. They can't jump forward. It's like if you're training to run a marathon, you can't run a marathon the first day. Or the second day, or probably within 6 months. You need to work up to it. And this is the same way. Practitioner, as you think about giving up marijuana, what do you consider would be the advantages and the disadvantages of giving up pot? Client, I am not ready to make any changes right now, and usually that's the way things work. They're still in the contemplation stage. They're not really ready. They haven't convinced themselves. Normally what's going to happen is that they have to decide that they have to change their lifestyle. I'm going to stop doing this. And if I do this, what am I going to have to do? What are the pros and cons? Normally when you change your lifestyle, the best way to change your lifestyle is to change the people that you are around. They are the people that are feeding into your problem. So I can't go to the bar anymore if I'm a drunk. I can't hang around with all those potheads. I'm going to have to find new friends. And that's tough. It's a really tough decision to make. And a lot of people will contemplate this for an extended length of time until they make a second mistake, or a third mistake, or a fourth mistake. Client, I have wondered if some of the problems on this team are because I am kind of dominating, but on the other hand, I think we get more accomplished because I am pushing. Okay. Client, my boss thinks I should get over my fear of making speeches, but I am not. I'm just not sure if it is something I can do. And that's the way you feel when you're giving a speech and you have that type of phobia. Client, I keep getting sent to the principal's office for fighting, and then I can't play in the next football game. I don't like getting in trouble, but I have to stand up for myself. This is a big one. I have to stand up for myself. Which is better? Client, we have discussed forming a committee to address the problems in this organization, but I wonder if we would really accomplish anything. Practitioners can help clients identify barriers or challenges to making changes, and also strengths that will be helpful if they decide to change. Practitioners might ask if there are small steps that they might consider that may lead to a greater willingness to change in the near future. And of course, what we're trying to do is guide them on a path where they actually correct whatever problem they have. The third stage of readiness for change is preparation. The clients are ready to change and are looking for information. They may have already made some changes and are wanting to make more progress. They may have made some small steps and are ready to move forward making goals. And of course, that is the preparation stage. So they're moving forward, and that's why I put the guy not really walking, is he? I guess he is. Generally, people need to be at this stage before a major change will be possible. Okay, so we've had the pre-contemplation stage, the contemplation stage where nothing is happening, and the preparation stage where something is actually happening. But now we need to set goals, and we need to look to the future. Before they had to contemplate what potentially could happen. In the preparation stage, we can contemplate what will happen if they follow a select set of goals. The fourth stage is the action stage. Clients are ready to take specific steps and may need little to no support from the practitioner. If the practitioner assumes that clients are at this stage and yet they are still in a previous stage, the practitioner will likely feel frustrated. Let me give you a hint and a warning. To act like this thing is a natural progression. It's not. A lot of times you'll get them into the action stage and they'll start doing things, and all of a sudden they'll bounce back to the contemplation stage. It happens all the time. Usually it has to do with them interacting with other individuals outside of the counseling arena. Usually it has to do with them coming in contact with somebody who is from their previous lifestyle. Normally they're going to have to change. You can't go to the bar and not drink. For one thing, the smell will get to you, and another thing, it's just where you have done it before. So you're going to drink if you go to the bar. But people are going to keep asking you to go to the bar. You're no fun anymore. If I've been told that once, I've been told that a million times. I'm no fun anymore. Actually, I was never fun to begin with, so. We all know that, okay? I'm no fun. So a lot of times these people, they will slip back, and that's okay. We just need to bring them back to where they were, where they're ready to change, to make a change in their lives. So one of the problems is if you're one of those types of individuals that can't accept somebody not doing what you tell them to do, and they slip back somewhere, you're going to feel very frustrated. I've never had that problem. I always let my clients do whatever my clients are going to do. I try to guide them in the best way that I possibly can. But when they slip, and they all do, when they slip, I let them slip because that's the only way to learn. Sometimes you got to trip before you figure out that you're falling down. Clients may feel that they should be ready to take steps that they are not ready to take. Only about a third of the clients come to practitioners at this stage. So normally you're not going to get clients that are ready to take action. They're going to come in and they usually are in the contemplation stage. If you have, if the courts are telling them that they have to come in and see a counselor, then they will be in the pre-contemplation stage. Pre-contemplation stage is tough. because they don't think that they've got a problem. Or if they do have a problem, it's somebody else's problem. It's not theirs. It's their wife's problem, or it's their husband's problem. If it wasn't for my husband, I wouldn't be this way. Really? Or is it possible that you married that guy so that you could be this way? Because he treated, okay. Anyway, so you're not really going to get a lot of clients that are in this stage. These guys are real easy to fix. They're ready to go. So all you have to do is let them go. Just let them fix themselves. An obese client, when faced with life-threatening health issues, joins Weight Watchers, learns to follow the program, and loses a significant amount of weight. There's a problem with this, so I think they just changed the name of Weight Watchers, didn't they? Isn't it just Watchers now or something? Or it's W? It's W. I read that someplace, maybe a couple of weeks ago. Okay. A parent whose children have been removed from the home because the parent used harsh, abusive means of discipline, says that they will learn other ways of discipline, willingly goes to a parenting class and talks with the practitioner about ways to use what they have learned. Somebody has anger issues and discipline issues. A child realizes that they will not be able to play on a team without earning passing grades, and they start attending an after-school tutoring class in order to bring up their grades. Yay, action. A task group establishes a clear goal, identifies steps to achieve their goal, and talks with a practitioner about ways to work together most effectively. Okay, so there is a pull to return to old behaviors. It's extremely strong. Remember, this has been their lifestyle for an extended length of time. They have just changed their lifestyle. But they need to maintain themselves. They need to maintain their new lifestyle. But the pull is always strong. What you need to convince them is that if they relapse, if they go backwards, that they need to get back on the wagon right away, as quickly as they can. And they can't see themselves as a failure. Everybody slips. That's what you have to tell them. And you have to start telling them that as soon as they go into the preparation stage. You need to tell them, hey, look, potentially you're going to move backwards. And don't feel bad about that. You just need to maintain yourself. You just need to keep on doing this as best you can. If you slip, don't worry about it. If you get drunk one night, that's okay. Don't go on a binge. Don't assume that it's all over with. This isn't something that you have to be abstinent for the rest of your life. You're going to slip. Eventually you're going to not want to slip, but it's way, way down the line. And you're going to have to stay sober for an extended length of time. So you need to convince them that they will slip, that they may potentially slip. Don't tell them that they will slip. That they may potentially slip, but they need to go back to where they were. You've made so much progress. Why in the world go back to your old lifestyle? Clients need to develop ways to cope with temptations and to reward day-to-day successes. And of course, some days they're not going to be successful. Some days they're going to eat all those little Debbies. Every Twinkie in the box, they're going to eat all the Twinkies. And of course, they just consumed all that stuff that's not real food, so that ought to be interesting. It is helpful to explore how past successes have been maintained and develop ways to maintain current changes. And everybody's different. Everybody's going to have different triggers. It's a rainy day today. What do you do on a rainy day? Well, you eat cupcakes, of course, like doesn't everybody? And drink lattes. I don't know. What do you do on a rainy day? It must be remembered that the stage can be difficult, the maintenance stage. The old behavior has maintained before because it was rewarding or comfortable. If you start to get depressed, you may use that as an excuse to go back to the old cupcake. Oh, did I say cupcake? I meant whole cake, okay? Clients need to learn to cope with old behaviors and temptations for the long haul. And of course, That's how we get over things. An organization develops more effective ways of problem solving and plans regular meetings so potential problems can be addressed before they become bigger issues. An individual learns to stop procrastinating on projects and makes plans to check in with someone who will provide honest feedback about whether the problem seems to be reappearing. A lot of times we are in denial about these things. I am a procrastinator. That's why I haven't graded all your stuff yet. But usually I'll get around to it eventually. You guys wait to get around to things, so why shouldn't I? Actually, that's the reason I grade the way that I do. I don't stay up with my grading, so why should I expect you guys to stay up with your posting? So I don't have any time limits on any of my stuff. Because I'm a procrastinator too, sometimes. I have my problems. A person who has had serious problems with alcohol abuse continues to be involved with AA, which is a great way to maintain yourself. Keep going to the AA meetings. A person who has lost weight with the help of Weight Watchers and continues to attend meetings at least once a month. There you go, Weight Watchers. Relapse is common in preparation for it needs to be part of the process, as I was saying before. I would start, personally, I would start in the preparation stage, not in the contemplation stage. Do it in the preparation stage, when they have convinced themselves that they really want to change. It hasn't started yet, but they really want to change. You need to tell them, you're feeling right now that you can't maintain this program. There is a possibility that you might relapse, and if you do relapse, please stay with the program. It doesn't mean that you're a failure and that you need to stop it. My wife is short and squat. She's 5'4", so she's about this tall. She's 5'4". She has really short arms. I don't know if you've ever seen her, but she has really short arms. So she would buy her uniforms. She was in the military. She'd buy her uniforms, and they'd fit her here. She's kind of large-chested. So they would fit her here, but the arms would be like down to here. So she'd have to have her sleeves tailored. It was kind of interesting. So she's a short and squat individual. The military wants her to be tall and slender, but she's not. She's short and she's kind of plump. And she's full-chested, which means it's really hard. It was really hard for her to maintain her weight. The military told her she couldn't be any heavier than a certain level, and it was tough for her because she's short and squat. So she went on diets, and she went on diets constantly, and some of them worked and some of them didn't. But whenever she gained too much weight or the diet stopped working, she would quit. And it was so very frustrating to me. And I'm the last person in the world that could tell her anything. I wanted to tell her exercise. If you can't be on a diet and not exercise because it doesn't count. You know, you're not burning any of those calories. But of course, I was the last person in the world she would take any advice from. So I watched her fail over and over and over again, and it was painful. She would relapse and she'd go off her diet, even if the diet was working. She was on this one prisoner of war diet. Brown rice and fish. So it was what prisoners of war in Vietnam ate. Oh man, and she lost a ton of weight. I hate fish. I hate the smell of fish. That was a horrible diet for me, but it worked for her. But she hates eating the same food over and over and over again. She wants to change her diet every day. So I mean, it worked for 3 or 4 months, and then she couldn't stand fish anymore, and she couldn't stand brown rice, and she relapsed and she went off the diet. She didn't get back on again, and to this day she can't stand fish, except salmon. Okay, so relapse is common in preparation for it needs to be started. Relapse is so common that when change has occurred that some practitioners add it as a stage of change. So you need to add it at least to the end of your process. When relapse occurs, clients may return to any of the previous stages. It is the job of the practitioner to determine which stage the client is in. Now we have gone back to a new beginning, and that's okay, as long as they stay sober. Alcohol will kill you, or tobacco. Tobacco is even more toxic than alcohol is. It will kill you as well. Termination is the point at which there is no temptation to return to the old behavior. Usually that's okay. You're going to get to a point where they don't have the desire to consume that anymore. They don't have the desire to smoke. They don't have the desire to drink anymore. Until they're around their friends again. Assessing stages of change. Do you currently have a problem with? If yes, then the client is in contemplation, preparation, or action stage. If no, the client is in pre-contemplation stage. They won't admit that they've got a problem. So this is a good first question to ask. Do you currently have a problem with alcohol? Do you currently have a problem with your weight? Do you currently have a problem with tobacco? And if they say no, then they're not even thinking of changing. They're not even at that stage yet. But if they say yes, then they're somewhere else, in the contemplation, preparation, or action stage. Do you intend to deal with the problem? If the answer is someday, then the client is in the contemplation stage. Someday means maybe. Sometime I may do this. If the answer is in the next few weeks or specific date, then they're in their preparation stage. And of course, if they say right now, then they're in the action stage. If they say, do you intend to deal with the problem? And they say no, of course, they're in the pre-contemplation stage. Or in the never land stage. Do you intend to deal with the problem? If the answer to the question is no, then ask them, what leads you to say that? If the answer is because it is not a problem, the client is in the pre-contemplation stage. If the client responds, because I have already dealt with the problem, the client is in the maintenance stage. And now we're going to use another theory. This is Albert Bandura when he got his PhD. You've probably seen pictures of Albert Bandura with white hair and whatnot. He's Canadian. Can't you tell? No, you can't tell. Another theory that can be used to assess readiness or the ability to make changes is social cognitive theory. This theory was developed by this guy, Albert Bandura, and was originally called the social learning theory. This theory considers the impact of the following factors as to readiness for change: environmental factors, personal factors, and behavioral factors. The social cognitive theory. Personal factors include everything: physical makeup, brain structure, cognitive capacity, your belief system, your self-concept, your goals, and the emotions that all of this stuff engenders. What emotions do you have? Or are you emotionless? Like me, I'm kind of emotionless. Personal factors deal with how you interact with others. Are you focused more inward on yourself? What do you think of people that are on the internet all the time? Are they focused on themselves, or are they focused on other people? Are they on the internet because they want to interact with other people? Or are they on the internet because they're selfish and want to just deal with themselves? What do you think? People on the internet. People that walk down the hall and are on their telephone checking whatever. I can't ever figure out what the hell they're checking, but they're checking something. You know, and they're walking beside somebody and not having a conversation. Just checking their phones. Sometimes I'll be walking. I have to walk. My office is way over by the library now, so I have to walk all the way over here. And a lot of times people will be going down the sidewalk, and all of a sudden they see me coming, and they'll go on another sidewalk, even though they should have taken my sidewalk. What's wrong with those people? Or what's wrong with me? I don't know. Or a lot of times, they will have those earbuds in, or their headphones on, and they'll just walk past me, and I'll say hello, and now I don't do that. Now I go, hi. I wave at them like that. Sometimes they'll look, and sometimes they won't. So what's that all about? Is there something wrong with me? You can tell me if there's something wrong with me. Okay, so the question is, are they focused inward or are they focused outward on others? Is being on the internet focusing on other people? Is talking to people on the telephone? See, in the old days, telephones used to be attached to the wall. So the only time you could use a telephone was if you were in that room where that wall was. Otherwise, you were not in communication with people. Now you guys are in communication with everybody, with anybody, at any time. Not only do they call you on the telephone and you have conversations, but you text each other. Am I right? Okay, has anybody been texted since they were in the class? Who texted you?
My brother.
Your brother?
He was asking when our exam dates are.
Oh, okay. You were texted? Anybody important?
Not really.
Okay. Who else was texted? Who texted you?
My mom.
Your mom. That's important. Moms are important. Okay. Does she know you're in class?
Yeah. My mom does that. She'll call me in my 9 o'clock class, 6 to 9 o'clock class. She knows I'm in class in the evening. She never fails. Always.
She
ringing.
always calls you.
Always calls me, Mom. She'll be like, where you at? What are you doing? I'm like, seriously, Mom, we went through this last week.
Let me see the last time I was called. This is kind of tragic. October 7th, what is today? The 9th? Oh. It's only 2 days. It was my wife. Oh, that was Sunday, wasn't it? Okay. And she had to leave to watch a football game. The Cowboys are playing somebody. Did the Cowboys win this weekend? Does anybody know? They didn't win? Who'd they lose? Lost in overtime. Oh, great. My grandson is probably in deep depression. He's only 7, or 6, I'm sorry, he's only 6. Research has shown that behavior affects brain structure. Long-haul truck drivers have different brain structures than theoretical physicists. Has anybody ever talked to a theoretical physicist? They're fun. They're just a blast. They know nothing of the real world. It's like, come on, everything is physics. You should understand how things work. They don't understand any of that stuff. It's just amazing. Behavior also affects physical makeup, as someone who is sedentary will look different from a marathoner. And of course, this is the marathoner right here, and this is the person that is sedentary. Yeah, even his head's big. Kind of interesting. When assessing a person's readiness or ability to make changes from the point of view of social cognitive theory, several dimensions are considered. Does the environment support or encourage changed behavior? Now remember those gang members we were talking about before? Does their environment encourage changed behavior? Why are they gang members? What is going on in their environment? How dangerous is it out there? I keep telling you about my friend that has 18,000 rounds of ammunition. He has 3 military weapons. One's an AK-47. He's got a Russian rifle. He also has 2 AR-15s. What is it about his environment that makes it more dangerous than mine? Is one of us deluded? Is Hogan housing that dangerous that I need an AK-47? And 18,000 rounds of ammunition. But what if I was a gang member? Are they living in such a dangerous environment that they really do need those weapons? Do they, and if they didn't have the weapons, would something horrible happen to them? So we have to ask ourselves, does the environment support or encourage changed behavior? If you are a bartender and you're an alcoholic, yeah, that's a tough one. You're around alcohol all the time. Does your environment support change or encourage change? Probably not. If you're an alcoholic going in as a bartender, then you, wow, who hired you? Somebody made a mistake. Does the person think that they have the capacity to make the change? And of course, nobody in the beginning thinks that. But remember, we are supporting all their strengths. We are empowering them. So potentially, we should give them this strength and this power. They already have it, and now what we need to do is convince them that they can do it. Does the client believe that there is something to be gained from making the change rather than maintaining the current behavior? A couple really interesting movies out there about individuals that were alcoholics, females that were alcoholics, and when they tried to change, when they tried to get sober, their significant others didn't want them to because their behavior wasn't what they liked, what they wanted. They wanted them to be alcoholics. Let's see. Oh, so in their case, what was something gained? Well, they gained sobriety, and they may have gained a number of decades onto their life, but at the same time, they lost their significant other. How important is somebody's significant other? This is a tough one. I mean, some women will give up their children to keep their boyfriends. They will allow their boyfriends to do things that they shouldn't probably be doing. So this is a tough one. How important is love? Oh. Let's vote. How important is love? Is it the most important thing in the whole wide world? Your significant other? Is your significant other more important than your kids? Wow.
She's not related to me, so
Oh.
my
Yeah,
kids are
that's-
related to me.
That's my theory as well, and my belief as well. She's not related. Of course, you shouldn't be related to.
Oh. She isn't, but she's related to the kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's their mom.
Yeah, that's a whole mom thing. So how important is
How many
love?
years of
Is it
marriage?
more important?
I think it depends on the reality, and it will shift and change like in time, so like significant trauma, then I would think not really, because you'd have to survive, so love would be less
So your survival is more important
than emotion.
so
'Cause
would you sacrifice, Jesus, would you sacrifice yourself for your significant other?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. You think he should sacrifice himself for you?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I
I
was-
hope he doesn't think that way.
No. How important is love?
Is it with the significant other or the kid?
We can do that one, okay.
I think the kid would be fun.
More important than your significant other? Okay. Who's more important, the kid or the your children or your significant other? Probably. Kids are... Kids? Are you sure? Okay. Does it matter how old the kids are? If they're teenagers? Oh, okay.
If they're adults.
Out the door. Which, how important is love?
Well, there's all forms of love.
I need to know. Okay, so what kind of love, significant other. No, I'm not talking about mom and dad, your brothers and sisters. I'm talking about, you know, the one true love.
Your friend.
Yeah, Princess Bride, Princess Bride.
Well.
Have you ever seen the movie Princess Bride?
Yeah.
Princess Buttercup. And Leslie, wasn't his name Leslie?
Yeah.
Okay. That kind of love.
Well, with me and my husband, we both focus on the kids. Doesn't really.
So the kids are more important than,
Yeah.
than the old man, okay. Or whatever he is. The young man. What do you think?
I guess it depends on the relationship, because you also don't wanna like enable them.
Significant other?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to enable them. So do you sacrifice yourself for your significant other? Would you give them a kid?
We have different blood types and that's
Oh,
okay.
yeah, okay. You already typed?
Well, he's a military guy, it's on his dog tag.
Okay, well.
She's gonna become my sister if I do that.
Can't do that.
So are you gonna sacrifice for your significant other?
Well, if it's like in regards to like, if you have a child,
Right.
I would probably use my significant other as a human shield.
Oh, good idea. I like the human shield part. How important is love?
I guess it depends on a person's understanding and concept of love.
Okay, we're talking to you about your concept of love.
To a certain extent, I guess.
Okay. Would you sacrifice for your significant? No. Okay. How important is love? I know, but it. How important is love? Because you're going to be a counselor, you're going to be talking to people who think that their significant other is so important to them that they would cut off their left arm for that person. They would sacrifice everything for that person. And sometimes when they think sacrifice, they're thinking they're kids. Right? Okay. Remember the story about my wife? Not the stabbing part, but when she left me and she left me with the kids? Would you do that for, she left them for somebody else. Not, she was leaving me, but she was also leaving them. Would you do that? No. So how important is love? How important is love?
I think it's not really important, just as long as you and the other person work together. Because my first marriage, the way he explained it, like I used to put myself or him before myself.
Right.
I used to like drop everything and make sure that he's doing better than I am. So that in which
His
I-
ego was that weak that he needed?
So I would like stay home and cook, clean, and do all that stuff while he worked, and I helped him get a job, and help him do his resume, and help him get prepared for an interview.
You put yourself lower than him so that he could feel tired.
So now that I'm in my marriage now, we work together,
There you go.
and we're there for our daughter, for
Right.
our child, and I put my child before him now.
Right.
And he knows that, he does the same thing.
Good for
So our
him.
daughter comes first.
Good for him. I like that.
Yeah, love is a luxury, so,
It's a luxury.
yeah, sometimes you can't afford to have it. And when you do, I don't know, sometimes the other person isn't the right person to be able to understand.
Here, here.
Sometimes
Comes with
that
a lot of
person
responsibility.
Isn't the right person.
Right. Love comes with a lot of responsibility.
Love, we're talking about love, how important is love?
I mean, that's what it is, when you wake up in the morning and pray, and that's love for yourself there, and that's a responsibility.
That's what everybody said.
We're only a 4th grade, that's why.
Would you sacrifice?
Okay, so, thank you.
We sacrifice our egos for love, but would you sacrifice your kids for love? It's gonna hit him. I was hoping.
I know she.
How important is that?
That's all you want.
No, she hasn't, but she just said what you agree.
That's, okay, before you had
She just
kids,
emailed me like.
you would sacrifice for your sister. But once you had kids,
The only thing I'm missing is the last 7,000.
significant others not near it as important.
Okay,
Yeah, that was the other one.
the sixth one, which
Who's
is
kids
6 and
involved?
7, I believe.
Sorry?
If there's kids involved.
Sure, but
I
how
was
about
really
the
was asking
significant
about the exam, and I was like, they were supposed to.
other?
be
You're
this
gonna,
week.
they're second.
Uh,
And you come in for 12?
She said we can go to the lab.
Okay, so
How
yes,
important is
until
love?
next week then.
I guess it depends.
Yeah, because I think that's why she said whatever
Okay.
our grades are now are graded right
Between
between
you
you
and
Our exam is postponed till next week, 15
It's last week is between your child and it's totally different.
So at least
Sometimes we have to decide between our significant
I would
others.
never ever take.
What did she call that, redemption?
That's the type of love I have for my child.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying there's a difference between
Right,
the love that you have within a relationship
Right.
versus your own children.
right.
And even more especially for us female before it was
Right.
about love because you know your own children. I think even there,
It's the wrong
I think
person to
it's
give it to.
totally love,
Love.
it's just a word, but I might be wrong, yeah, but
But
I'm
now I
not
think
sure.
I'm less and I'm happy with that.
Should I love my kids?
Oh, yeah.
She loved my kids,
Who is she?
my first wife.
You can love each other, you.
She left them. I know, what the hell's wrong with that? That's the question I kept asking myself. What's wrong with that lady? Okay, well, that's interesting. Because no matter what you're thinking right now, no matter what kind of relationship you have, potentially, you're going to be running into all this stuff. Yes, ma'am.
What about you?
What about me, what?
That's a good question.
No, and actually, I told this to my current wife. I told her that the kids were more important than she was. I told her that from the very beginning, and she still decided that she wanted to have something to do with me. I know, that was a shock. Because, yeah, well, I mean, I was the only person for my kids. I mean, I was the only person that was there for them. Certainly my ex-wife wasn't there. So, I mean, we needed to put them first. We needed to make sure that they were always taken care of. Yes?
So is your ex-wife involved with your kids now?
Not at all. I don't think she's seen either of them since 1990. But,
Say another word.
I told you the story. What time is it? How much time do we have? What time is it? Is it time?
Well, 10, 12.
10, 12?
So when you met her, it wasn't love, it was lust?
Which one?
The first one?
Oh, what am I talking about? It was the same way with all of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I like to think that, well, here comes the rain, just when it's time for me to go walk back to the. Well, that's not right. Hot dog, okay. I always put my kids first.
No.
And I had to do that mainly because it's sleep, isn't it? Sleep.
I would say it's a learned value.
Yeah.
Wasn't for my first wife. She didn't learn that. She thought she was more important than they were. Evidently, I mean, she hasn't had any contact with them since 1990, so that's maybe longer than some of you guys have been alive.
So that you haven't had a great one?
I'm sorry?
That you haven't had a great one?
She married a guy with 6 kids.
None.
None of them were hers. She married a guy with 6 kids, but he was her 5th husband, I was her first. So she had all these other husbands in between. Most of them had to do with, I don't know, having a good time right now.
Did she ever try getting back with you?
Me?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. At one point, she tried to seduce me. That was nice. No, that was nice that I said it the way I did. She was at a motel and she invited me over, and here she is in a towel. Yeah, I know. She was with her third husband,
Oh my god.
but he had gone someplace. And, anyway, well,
Sounds like a fun lady.
I left real quick. I wasn't gonna get involved with that crazy lady again. And my kids were young, were relatively young. They were, I don't know, 12 and 10, something like that. And she left when my son was 9 months old, so. Yeah. So she never really knew the kid. And he was only 9 months old. But it was kind of an interesting situation. She was ready to leave her third husband. And she thought since I was successful, maybe she was looking for my money. I don't know. But I'm not as stupid as I look, I know, or as I sound, so I got out of the room really quick as I possibly could. Whoa!
So as you get older, does that love get stronger? Like, for example, your kids grow up and they have their kids, your grandkids.
I'm not
You
worried.
end up home alone together.
Right.
And so, does that love begin to grow?
I would say it changes.
It changes?
It changes.
Or do you get scared of one another, or what happens?
I've always been scared of my current wife.
I'm scared now.
No, she's in Iowa. I don't have to worry about it.
That's how I am.
Or you might get
I'd be like
on
that
each other's
across the
nerves.
street.
Actually, we don't. We've never had a fight. We've never had a fight. So, yeah. But it's, it's special case. Well, she's my third wife, so by this time I figured it out. What to do and what not to do.
Should write a book on it. I figured out women.
No, I figured out this wife. Yeah. Okay, well, and I told you my second, well, I'm not going to talk about that again. No, with the kids in the room. Okay.
But are you
Okay.
happy that she didn't have, put her values and frame of thinking into your kids' head?
You mean my current wife?
No, your,
First wife?
the one that left.
Oh, I was the one that left me. You mean both of them that left me? I
The
was
one that
def-
left her kids.
I was definitely afraid that, and I was happy that she left, because she had a different way of looking at things. And it was a more negative way of looking at things. So I was kind of happy that she left. She was a spanker. She wanted to spank the children all the time. Discipline was very important to her. She wanted them to be popular, and I wanted them to be smart. So she wanted to make my daughter into one of those little princess things. Pageant people, yeah. It was just, and I didn't agree with that. I thought that I wanted my kids to be smart and to be happy in life, not to be constantly chasing. Well, yeah, whatever, but that was what she wanted. I have a sister that sent all of her daughters. She wanted her daughters to be Shirley Temple, so they all went to acting school and they all went to dancing school. I know. How weird is that? Because she wanted her daughters to be Shirley Temple, literally.
Maybe it stems from that whole Victorian view of females to where they're subordinate and, damsels, and in that, you have to have a skill or a talent for anyone to even take notice or take you, where there's any importance even going on in it.
Right. So that's why they wear so much makeup.
That's probably
Yeah.
mine.
When you said spanker, I was thinking there's just one man. He actually spanks his wife.
Okay.
And his children. Like if she was Miss comes back like 5 minutes late, and why didn't you come back 5 minutes late?
So he-
Ice cream, you're supposed to buy an ice cream from Chili, before it melts, you're supposed to come back home. And when she would come back home, then he would, I mean, if she's late, he would whip her like his kids do also, so that was, that was his discipline. So when you said spanking, I was wondering if she was.
My first wife wanted me to spank her, but it didn't have anything to do with ice cream.
I know, that was the same thing. I thought she was thinking him.
Oh, great. Oh, please.
Rude.
Travis said it first.
He was thinking it, you said.
I know. Oh, man. Okay.
Goodness.
I can't even remember what we were talking about. Why- Whether love is important or not. Okay, I can't remember. Anyway. But it's good that we understand love, because love is going to get in the way of our clients over and over and over and over again. I told you about my wife working at the women's shelter and none of these women having any teeth. The reason they kept going back, it used to be 6 times, it took them 6 times to get out of the house. Now it's 8. So the reason they go back is maybe for financial reasons, but probably the reason is because they still love him. And they will use that as an excuse to go back over and over and over again, put themselves in dangerous situations, things that don't make any sense to us. No sense whatsoever. But, I mean, this is one of those aspects that we need to understand, that it's going to happen. You know, my wife hit me with baseball bats and scalded me with boiling water, and I still stayed with her. But it wasn't because of love, it was because of the kids. I was afraid. I didn't want the kids turning out like hers. Her family's just whacked out. Whacked.
Goodness.
They're all living in Florida now. They're all on welfare, and they all begat children that they never raised. So, I mean, all of them. There's four daughters, and they all had children, and they all abandoned their children to their husbands, so that they could, you know, go out and have a good time. And all 4 of them did exactly the same thing. I know. What time is it? My watch. That's close enough. Let's stop right here. We'll pick this up next time. Just remember that love's a tough one. I mean, that's one of the reasons that people are going to be doing what they're doing. I'm sorry. It's not my